A man in his early 30s sits at a small kitchen table late in the evening, quietly reviewing a stack of bills and bank statements that have accumulated over the course of the month. Nothing about the numbers is catastrophic. The rent is paid, groceries are covered, the car loan is current, and there is even a modest amount placed into savings each month. From the outside, the financial picture appears responsible and stable, and this is precisely why the deeper issue often goes unnoticed. What unfolds in situations like this is not the result of a dramatic financial mistake, but the slow formation of a pattern that repeats so consistently it eventually becomes invisible. Across decades, millions of households follow a remarkably similar financial trajectory. Income increases gradually over time, yet living costs rise alongside it in a way that feels almost automatic. Larger homes, newer cars, upgraded conveniences, and subtle lifestyle shifts begin to occupy the additional space that higher earnings create. Each individual decision appears reasonable in isolation, and none of them feel reckless or irresponsible. The pattern, therefore, never triggers alarm because each step feels justified within the context of everyday life. The core concept behind this quiet financial dynamic is that most long-term wealth outcomes are not determined by dramatic financial events, but by the mathematical accumulation of small decisions that compound over long periods. A single purchase or upgrade rarely changes a financial future, but a repeated pattern of similar decisions can redirect decades of capital flows without ever drawing attention to itself. When viewed year by year, the effect appears minor, yet when examined across 30 years, the numbers begin to tell a very different story. Behavioral economists often refer to this phenomenon as lifestyle anchoring. Human beings naturally recalibrate their expectations to match their current environment, which means that yesterday's luxury gradually becomes today's baseline. Once this baseline shifts, maintaining it begins to feel like maintaining normalcy rather than increasing spending. The psychological mechanism is subtle but powerful because the mind does not perceive the change as expansion but as stability. The individual is not consciously trying to spend more money. They are simply attempting to maintain the level of comfort that has become familiar. To understand how this dynamic unfolds mathematically, imagine a professional who begins their career earning $40,000 annually. In the early years, financial decisions tend to revolve around basic stability, housing, transportation, and essential living costs. Over time, promotions, job changes, and economic growth gradually raise that income to $70,000, then $90,000, and eventually perhaps well into six figures. From a distance, this progression appears to represent financial progress, and in many ways it certainly does. However, what matters in the long run is not simply the growth of income, but the direction in which each incremental increase is allocated. If a salary increases by $10,000 in a given year, the additional income creates a financial crossroads. That increase can be directed toward asset accumulation, long-term investment, or financial resilience, or it can be absorbed by lifestyle upgrades that become permanent fixtures of daily life. The difficulty is that lifestyle upgrades feel immediately tangible, while asset accumulation often feels abstract and distant. A slightly nicer apartment, a more comfortable car, or more frequent travel provides visible improvements to daily experience, while additional investment contributions simply appear as numbers quietly sitting inside an account. When this pattern repeats over decades, the difference between those two allocations becomes mathematically significant. Consider a modest lifestyle upgrade that costs $500 per month. In isolation, this does not appear dramatic. Many households could comfortably absorb that increase without financial strain, and the improvement to daily comfort might even feel justified after years of hard work. Yet $500 per month represents $6,000 per year. In over 30 years, that single decision redirects $180,000 away from potential long-term capital accumulation. Once investment growth is considered, the difference becomes even more pronounced. If the same $6,000 per year had been invested consistently over 3 decades with moderate long-term market returns, the resulting capital could reach several $100,000. The purpose of this comparison is not to criticize lifestyle improvements, but to illustrate how ordinary financial decisions gradually shape the structure of a financial future. The quiet power of this process lies in its invisibility, because the trade-off rarely appears in a single moment. Historical economic patterns reinforce this observation. In the decades following the Second World War, many households experienced rising wages alongside expanding consumer markets. As new technologies and conveniences entered everyday life, spending patterns gradually evolved to incorporate them. Refrigerators, televisions, air conditioning systems, and eventually personal computers became part of the expected baseline of modern living. Each innovation improved quality of life, yet each also gradually expanded the financial structure required to maintain what society began to consider normal. This historical expansion of lifestyle expectations created an environment in which financial pressure can exist, even in relatively high-income households. When expectations shift upward across entire societies, individuals often experience financial tension, not because they are irresponsible, but because the baseline cost of maintaining normalcy has quietly increased. The result is that people may earn more than previous generations while still feeling financially constrained. The systemic dimension of this pattern reveals why the 30-year financial mistake feels so ordinary. It is not the result of a single poor decision, but the natural outcome of an economic environment that encourages incremental upgrades. Consumer markets are designed to make small improvements feel both accessible and reasonable. And because each improvement is modest, the long-term accumulation rarely becomes visible in daily life. Recognizing this pattern does not require abandoning comfort or rejecting modern conveniences. Instead, it invites a shift in awareness about how financial flows develop over time. When income increases occur, even small allocation decisions can influence the trajectory of decades. Redirecting a portion of those increases toward asset accumulation allows income growth to translate into financial flexibility, rather than simply expanding the cost of maintaining everyday life. Over long horizons, the households that quietly build substantial financial resilience often do not appear dramatically different from their peers. They drive similar cars, live in comparable homes, and participate in many of the same activities. The distinction tends to lie in subtle allocation choices that occur whenever income expands. Instead of allowing every increase to permanently elevate lifestyle costs, they allow part of that increase to strengthen long-term financial capacity. Viewed through this lens, the 30-year financial mistake is not a dramatic failure, but a pattern of unnoticed drift. Because each step appears reasonable, the direction of the overall journey rarely attracts attention until many years have passed. By understanding the mathematical structure beneath these everyday decisions, individuals gain the ability to observe the pattern while it is still unfolding, which allows small adjustments today to influence the financial landscape of decades to come. Years from now, he may sit at the same table again, older, still responsible, still paying the bills. On the surface, everything will appear stable, but quietly, the difference between financial pressure and financial freedom will reflect decades of small decisions that either followed the pattern or slowly redirected it.